Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noe with Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. We are at episode 28. It is March 31st. I can't believe it's almost April. It is crazy. But for those of you who have never been into Speakeasy HR before, welcome. Glad you are making your Monday, spending time with us and hearing from an awesome speaker guest that we're going to have and talk about a really exciting topic. And I cannot wait to get to that. But for those who have not heard of Traci Austin, Traci, welcome to Speakeasy HR.
Thanks so much for having me today, David.
Yeah, you are the Chief Talent Officer with Elevated Talent Consulting. So we'll get into a little bit about what you do there, but just a few things before we get to it. Again, my name is David Noe. I'm the host, editor, producer of this podcast. If you haven't gone to speakeasyhr.com, jump over there. I'm doing a weekly blog. It's a word of the week. So speakeasyhr.com, you can get you can subscribe, and every week get the freshest blog that are going out every week, every Monday. So Traci, you've been doing HR and you're doing podcast work. So tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll hear a little bit more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in HR for 4 years, something like that. And really built HR departments from the ground up for nonprofit organizations. And then from there, really started working with a lot of different trade organizations, both within the nonprofits I worked with, but also through different consulting engagements.
Okay.
And so, yeah, lots of HR and lots of being in that HR seat where folks are coming in and sharing all the reasons why they don't love work or complaining about employees.
Well, yes. And I'm sure people listening to this will raise their hand when I ask this question, but have you ever heard someone complain about their job or their boss or their manager or the organization's decisions on something, or just complain about something? Because I feel like there are people that just like to complain and they'll tell you all about it. And then some will just kind of brush it off and not say much about their complaints. So it's kind of like, how do you navigate through those? And that's what we're going to get into today is those complaints and how to turn those into requests, and try to help somebody that might be a new manager that might have never had to deal with complaints before. So yeah, it's an exciting topic. And when we first connected, I kind of asked you, you have been doing this for a long time, and what topic do you feel most passionate about? Bring it on. And you said, let's talk about complaints. So it's like, let's do it. It sounds like a really interesting topic. So a couple things that we'll get to before we get into the topic a little bit. We do have the world famous envelope icebreaker game to play. So it's a little bit beyond knowing about your background in HR. So I've got the envelopes. I'm going to play a quick little intro. So think of a number 1 through 15 as this plays, and we'll get to it. Come on. Maybe it'll play. Maybe it won't. It's trying.
It's thinking.
There we go. Wake up, Restream. Wait. All right. All right. So 1 through 15, Traci, what is your number?
7.
7. Seems like everybody picks 7.
All right. Should I do a different one? I can do a different one.
Oh no, it's totally your call, because
Okay.
this is your pick. Okay, so when you were in grade school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
All right. So when I was in grade school, first thing that comes to mind is the astronaut. As an astronaut, I'm like, no, I don't think I'd want to do that. And then, of
Yeah.
course, it went into something with animals, and then it
Okay.
was a physical therapist. Well, none of those things are aligned with what I'm doing now, talking
Yeah.
about complaints. It's fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm sure I'm curious how many people when they were in grade school are doing what they thought they wanted to do in grade school. It's as a career, right? Like, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, firefighter, cop, police officer, great. But yeah, I don't know if that statistic's even out there. Like, how many people are actually doing what they wanted to do in middle school? But anyway, all right, one more. What's another number? Not 7.
9.
Number 9. Niner. Let's see. Okay. What is your favorite restaurant, cocktail, or movie?
Oh, all right. I just watched the movie The Life List, which is phenomenal.
The lifeless.
Um,
Okay.
it's, essentially it's what's your bucket list, and this mom essentially says, "You're stuck. I can't dig you out, but I can give you a shovel. So go figure out your life. And here's this list from when you were 13 of all the things you wanted to do."
Nice.
Brilliant. Cocktail, Stoli raspberry with soda water and a lime.
Okay. Very good.
And what was the third? I missed it. I got the first
Uh,
two.
Restaurant, cocktail, or movie. So
Oh, it was an or, not an and. Okay.
you're doing all of them. So yeah, you got a favorite movie?
The Life List would be the movie. I think the
Okay.
restaurant, I love local restaurants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's one, I'm in Beloit, Wisconsin, and there's one here called Truck that is street
Yeah.
tacos and,
Ooh.
tequila and amazing
Yeah.
margaritas.
There you
Phenomenal.
go. There you
Cucumber
go.
cilantro.
Oh yeah.
Now we
Absolutely.
just have another cocktail.
Yeah. Why not? Sounds
Perfect.
great. Well, thank you for playing the world famous envelope icebreaker game. And so you're talking about HR and being in HR for so long, and what's kept you in HR for this amount of time, and why have you turned it into kind of what you're doing now? You're doing a podcast, you're doing this consulting, and everything that you're focused on. So what has kept you in it for so long?
Yeah, people. I mean, really, it's
Yeah.
about people. It's about, we spend so much time at work, and is the work that we're doing fulfilling? So at
Right.
Elevated Talent Consulting, we believe every individual has a right and a choice to be fulfilled in the work that they do.
Yeah.
Yet, as leaders, we have the obligation to create that container for the work to be fulfilling. And guess what? Most of us are not great at it. So it's like, if you think about the complaint, my leaders suck at leading, right? And shift that into, what is the request we actually have? Well, we need to provide them with the training and the example of what's possible so that they can
Right.
truly step in and be those leaders,
Right.
so folks can be fulfilled at work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you are watching live, please comment. Let us know if you have a complaint that just comes to mind. Maybe it's a made up complaint. Maybe it's a complaint you heard last week. So like I was telling Tracy before we went live, I did something to my back last week. And so I was telling her about it. I coughed really loud and really hard because I was just getting over a head cold. And so my back is still tweaked out, and it's very frustrating, but I'm going to get it checked out tomorrow. I'm not going to just hope that it goes away. So I'm going to try to get it fixed. So definitely, I don't want to complain about it, but it's kind of hard to sit or stand. So I'm trying to be comfortable as much as I can as I have to sit and do this podcast. So bear with me. But so you talked about loving HR and the people that you work with, and just that people side. So what would you say to folks maybe in their first few years of an HR position, and they're not certified, but they want to have a career in HR? Like, what would you tell those kinds of individuals?
Yeah, I would first say, what is it that you want to do? Like, what is the impact that you want to make?
Right.
Because guess what? So much of what we do day to day is not fun. It's tedious. It is so many of those other things. And so, what is that impact that you want to make? And, how do you go about making that impact? And part of that is, instead of asking people what's wrong, ask them, what's the best thing that happened today?
There you go. Love it.
The mindset shift.
It really is. It really is, for sure. So we have all kinds of complaints. We've been interacting and exchanging emails, and so we have a list of complaints. So if people are watching and listening, we're not asking for complaints. We have plenty to go through, but if you have one, please put it in the chat, and we will definitely check it out and see if it's similar to some of the complaints that we'll go through. So before we oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you have a real fun complaint that you want to try to throw us off, yes, we
Yeah.
want to hear those too. And it could be it doesn't necessarily have to be work related, because this goes in all areas. It is the whole pot of soup, right? Like
Right.
we show up at work and at home and we are the same person. So that
Yep.
this works with relationships, with your
Mhm.
teenagers, with your little kids, like it works all over the place.
I've got 3 boys. I've got one that's 15. The state of Kentucky just passed a new law for driving, so he is, like, all about getting his license now because he's gonna get it sooner, and then I've got a almost 13-year-old and 11-year-old, so I definitely have a lot of people complaining in my household sometimes, so, um, alright, so we want to get to some of these complaints. I definitely want to start diving into some of them because we have a list and we may not get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. So before we get to that, just a quick couple words from our sponsor, Payroll Partners, and then we will get into it here. Tracy, 1 second.
Finding a new employee takes time and money. For one position on a single job board, you could easily spend a minimum of $5 to $10 a day advertising a job post. It's worth noting that the average time it takes to hire a new employee is 36 days. However, it can take longer than that. You could find yourself paying hundreds of dollars a month for a single job board. And if you're using multiple job boards for multiple positions, this could add up to thousands of dollars a month. There is a much simpler and more affordable way of finding the right candidate. At Payroll Partners, we offer an applicant tracking system to help manage your hiring process. Our ATS is customizable, allowing you to decide which days you want to run the job and when to close it so you don't break the bank. And this feature lets you e-blast your network, posting jobs on multiple boards at once, all managed in one location. Payroll Partners, elevating your payroll and HR experience.
You want to know about a complaint I had a few years ago before I joined Payroll Partners? It was payroll and HR technology because every Friday I hated because I usually had a payroll issue. And then I had to figure out what happened and it was just a nightmare. So now I don't have to complain as much because the technology is way better and our service is awesome. So anyways, if you're in the market of looking at payroll HR technology, look us up. We can work anywhere in the country, but we're local in Kentucky, Cincinnati area. So if you are looking at just evaluating what you have, trying to build a system that works better for you, give us a call, look us up, get connected to me on LinkedIn, and would love to try to figure out the right technology for you. So, all right, Tracy, I've
Before we
got,
go there, I
yeah,
just want to say, like, I'm listening to this going, how many complaints were there before the solution came up? And what were the requests that came through clients, customers to create the solution? Like, that was
right.
such a great example of where we're going.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, like, I've been in HR not as long as you, but almost, and, obviously people and working with people, it can be difficult, different generations and what motivates them. But when it comes to the efficiency of, like, technology you're given to manage people, to hire people, to pay people, just the simple things, but the important things of taxes and W-2s and benefits, 401k audits, it's like you got to have good technology.
Yeah.
And it's great to have great technology because there's a lot of great technology out there. But when you have to get something fixed or you're just not using it the way you want to, it's just it's very frustrating and it'll turn into a lot of complaints from people you work with, and then they'll not trust you to pay them right, and they'll be out the door before you can even try to fix it. So,
And then there's all the other headaches around not paying people right.
well, yes, absolutely. So a lot can go into that, and obviously it can be avoidable. So, all right. So I've got our list of complaints, and I know you had them, and I don't know which one particularly stood out to you, but I'm just going to throw one up there. It's going to go to
Perfect.
the bottom of the screen, and one of them is about the great performer, but causes drama everywhere they go. So you have a great performer. It's awesome. They're doing their job, whatever. But the drama that they build and the people that they interact with just makes it difficult for everyone else to stay focused. So, what do
Yeah.
you do about that, Tracy? Let's start
Yeah.
with this one.
Yeah. So I like to start with curiosity around what is it that, what is it that is frustrating? Okay, they cause drama. Great. Why do you think they cause drama? You notice the curiosity. So it's putting yourself in the other person's shoes to try to figure out what is driving the
Right.
behavior
Yeah.
that they have to create the drama.
Interesting. Okay.
So once we can get curious about what it is, now we've shifted from judgment. They cause drama everywhere they go. Well, here's a question. Do they really cause drama everywhere they go all the time, 100% of the time? Because that's an absolute, right?
Right.
It's kind of like saying, we've got behavior, which is this dramatic behavior, and it could be whatever that is. But is that really who the person is? We want to
Right.
separate out the person from the behavior
Right.
and get really curious about that. And once we do that, we have a mindset shift. And I'm curious. My guess is when we grabbed this question, there was a person in mind behind it that we're not going to name any names here. However,
Right. Yeah.
so when we're curious, now we're no longer judging. Can we truly have a conversation with someone that leads to a change or transformational change when we are in judgment?
Right.
I don't know about you, but when I feel judged, I'm going to retaliate against that. I don't cause drama, which just means I'm creating more drama.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult because, how would you even address this with that
Yeah.
person, right? Like, you have somebody that's causing drama, but they're doing their job, but you're hearing from other people complain about how they interact with them. So it's
Yeah.
like, are you going to want to lose a good performer, great performer, bring this up, or just kind of let it go and just, if other people are complaining about them, then until there's like a major problem, you're just going to probably let it slide and just be like, well, they're performing. So what am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah. Well, I would challenge and say it's definitely worth a mention, right? It's definitely worth a mention. I love the accountability dial and really kind of looking at, hey, how do we start to bring things up with an employee to bring some self-awareness into it?
Right.
Because does the employee even realize the drama that they're creating? And we can sit here and say, yes, they have to, but
Right.
the answers, unless we ask them, they may not. So, we actually have a tough talk audit to deal with complaints. And that first thing that we do is really start to prep with purpose
Yeah.
by, getting clear on what is the transformation that we want to make within the conversation. So if I'm going to sit down and talk to you, David, about causing drama in the workplace, we may go into, paired coaching conversation here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if we're going to sit down and have that conversation, what's the intention and what do I want to shift? Well, I want to figure out why, you're causing drama. And I want that to shift by bringing some self-awareness to it. So you have a healthier way to make a request for what you really need. Because every complaint is a poorly worded request. And that's a belief, right? And something I believe wholeheartedly is every complaint is just a poorly worded request. So I need to figure out what requests do you actually have? So the intention that I have is to figure out what requests you have and to start to shift that by bringing self-awareness to it for you and starting to have open dialogue for it. Should we go to step 2?
Let's go to step 2.
Okay. So step 2 is to set the tone for partnership. You notice the word here, partnership. And partnership is about we're equals in this conversation, which means my curiosity around what's there so we can partner together to create the change that's needed by first figuring out what is the request that you have so that we don't get this behavior. So I may say something that is, hey, David, you do an amazing job at payroll and about supporting the company and marketing to us all over the place. It's phenomenal. However, I'm curious what's going on with some of the conversations that happen behind the scenes because we're starting to hear about it. And I'm just curious what's going on with that for you.
Well, what do you mean? Like, is that what kind of examples are you saying? And
Well,
then you got to be like, well, here's some of the things that we've heard. Like, it seems like it's distracting the team. So it's kind of like when you bring it up, I feel like the person that's explaining it to this great performer, it's kind of like you've got to help them understand what that's doing to the team,
yep. And this
right?
brings us to step 3. You love that we've got a step for this.
Love
This
it.
brings us to step 3, which is to stick to the facts and
Yeah.
not the frustration. So often we will create a story around the facts, which hint, hint, nudge, nudge, you're creating drama. So,
Yep.
so we want to stick to the facts, which means we need to know exactly what those facts are. Was there something that was said in a Slack channel? Was there something that was said in a post? Is there an email? Now, if it's in black and white, it's so much better because we can't argue with an email or a Slack or a Teams that came from an individual. And
Right.
again, we don't want to cause judgment here. We want to create curiosity because we're in a partnership conversation. We're not in a disciplinary conversation
Right.
yet. Right. And so here it's really asking the question. So, hey, David, XYZ was said on Slack. I'm curious, what was your intent behind that?
Right.
And you can say, well, I was just trying to bring awareness to someone because they did not get me the payroll information that I needed in order to get payroll out on time. And I was really frustrated.
Yeah.
Amazing, David. So what I'm hearing you say, and this is the rephrase, right? Step 4 is listen for the unspoken, get curious about what's not being said. So this is where I'm going to do the rephrase. So what I'm hearing you say, David, is you are so committed to getting payroll out on time and you didn't have the information that you needed in order to be successful with the end outcome of everyone being paid appropriately because X, Y, and Z weren't doing their part of it. Yeah, that's 100% correct.
Yep.
Awesome. So, David, I'm curious, what impact do you think was had by sending the message that you sent?
Yeah. What I think sometimes, and maybe it's somebody's personality and they just have a big ego and they just don't really care what other people think until
Right.
they're addressed in the way that you're saying it. So it's kind of like if you can get that across to them, right, that their comments are being portrayed as somebody just creating drama and causing problems, and
Right.
there's a whole nother way to go about that.
Yeah. And
Especially, sorry, go ahead.
I said the other question I love to ask is, did you get the outcome you wanted from that post or from that question?
Right.
Now we're squarely putting it back on them. And the answer is typically no.
Exactly. Got a looks like a YouTube viewer watching live. Got a question. In your opinion, do you think people in workplaces enjoy drama? 3/4 of my previous jobs was loaded with toxicity and everyone was divided. Yeah. Yeah, I don't it's a good question. I think it depends on the industry because there have been industries that I've been in and it felt like everywhere you go there was drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't matter if you were in one location or another, and it just was a part of the industry, and it was just the way that people interacted. It was just always drama, and it was like, how do we get to the root cause? How do we do potentially like an environmental assessment to really pinpoint the drama creators and the people that we need to address? So getting that assessment done in that situation helped us to identify, is it the manager playing a role in that drama? And it was the manager, because the manager was a younger manager in her career, and they didn't understand how to like squash the drama. She was just playing a part of it. So
Right.
it was
Yeah.
difficult.
And I love this question because do I think that people really want to create drama? The answer is no. I don't. Like, do I think that a manager wants to be a horrible manager? No, I don't think they do. I believe that we're not taught how to make requests. I believe that we're not taught how to lead in a way that is authentic and
Right.
that pulls individuals together. That without some of that training and that guidance, we're not taught how to do that. And so
Right.
that's where I like to bring in core values. What are the core values for your organization? Because your culture is created by the behaviors that you allow or don't allow to happen.
Right.
So if we have not rolled through core values and a core belief of what behavior is okay and not okay, guess what? Drama will 100% happen. And so, if we look at the organizations where the highest turnover is, typically it's the organizations with the highest amount of drama.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, that's a hard one. Let's see what's the next one I'm going to bring up here. All right.
Before we do that, can I do a recap of our steps? Because we didn't finish all the way. And I want to give
Yeah.
our listeners all the way
Yes.
through. So I'm going to repeat our steps so far.
Yes.
So step 1 is to prep with purpose. So what's that one thing you want the conversation to shift?
Okay.
Step 2 is we want to set that tone for partnership, right? We want to be curious and we want to walk into that with partnership that starts from respect and not judgment. Step 3 is to stick with the facts and not the frustration. It is so easy to shift into frustration. And as the question just came up, or the manager you just talked about, they are becoming a part of the problem because they're creating drama themselves because they don't yet know how to address it appropriately without judgment.
Right.
Step 4 is to listen for the unspoken. And that's where I rephrased back. Here's what, I heard. And then step 5 is to co-create those solutions. And that's where, hey, that outcome you got, was that actually what you wanted to get? Well, no. All right. So what requests do you have to get the outcome you want going forward? And what's the outcome you want going forward? Well, I want payroll to be entered in on time. So I have the time to do my due diligence and to go through all the items and the checklist to ensure that we're meeting federal and state compliance, that, all of the, tax and PTO and the extra things are 100% included so that we're not paying somebody incorrectly. Does that feel like a reasonable request? Well, yeah. Okay. So how do we do it? And that's when we co-create the solution. And then step 6 is to lock in one clear next step. This is the accountability piece. So the conversation needs to create an action in behavior. So, David, I just want to kind of go back through what we agreed upon today. And, there has been some drama created around this. You are amazing at your job. Do you think that this gives us an opportunity to shift a little bit to give you a better result and to have you feel better about coming to work every day?
Love it. It seems so easy, right?
Yeah, right. Until you're in it and you're like, I don't know. So I can't wait for another one, but thank you for walking through those 6 steps. I just wanted to have it in one spot.
Yes, I love it. That's great. And so, yeah, if you are watching live on LinkedIn or YouTube and you have a complaint just that has happened before, or if you just want to make one up, put that in the chat and we will try to get to it as we go through these. So, all right. So this one I hear a lot. So they're terrible at their job, but I don't have time to document everything. And then it's like, well, they want HR to do it. Well, that's not really HR's job. They can be a part of it and help you document things correctly. But if you're a manager and you have somebody that's just not doing their job, you've got to address it, right? And you've got to tell them, like, be more of a coach versus a manager maybe, and try to help coach them through situations. But if you have 17 conversations and you come to me and say, hey, I want to fire this person. Okay, well, how many times have you talked to them in the last 3 months? Well, 17 times. Okay, What did you talk about in those 17 conversations? Well, I don't remember. I just had them like every so often. Well, did you ever write anything down after the meeting and like send them an email or send them a follow-up? Document. Like that is so it takes a lot of time, right? So what would you tell somebody that has this as a potential situation in their job right now as a manager?
Yeah, so I'm going to put a consulting hat versus a coaching hat on, and this exact scenario comes up in every single leadership development class that we do and with clients almost every day. So most of the time when you're talking with someone, please, please, please use your calendar, Outlook or Google or whatever it is. Even if they pop in your office for 15 minutes, send them a calendar invite of the 15-minute touch base. That does not take a lot of time. It literally takes
Nope.
2 seconds and they can do it while they're in your office. Send them the calendar invite. Touch base with David. Great. Now, once that meeting is complete, I want you to take that calendar invite and do a respond all or reply all.
Yep.
Now we have the calendar invite with a date and time. And we're going to reply all, and this is what it's going to say. Hey, David, thank you so much for popping in for 15 minutes today. We talked about the concern that you had about XYZ employee and that you'd like to take some action with that. Here's the 3 things you agreed to, and here's the 3 things I agreed to. One of those was I'm going to show you how to document this through this email. Done. I am going to give you 2 or 3 things from our employee handbook. Done. I'm going to give you a coaching template on how to have a curious conversation about turning complaints into requests with this person, and it's attached. Please respond back and let me know you received this. And if you heard anything differently, otherwise, I can't wait to get your response back to the 3 things you committed to. Literally takes less than 5 minutes. Just don't sit on it.
Why do you think so many people don't do that? Is it just they're too busy in other jobs and they just don't have time to just focus on that and actually do it? Because it doesn't sound very difficult. Like you said, it doesn't take long to do that.
Because we make it harder than what it actually is. We make it into this whole like, oh my gosh, I have to write up a formal written warning and it has to be all bullet points and I can't put any of my feelings into it, but I'm so angry with them. And we work ourselves up into, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And if HR doesn't think it's correct, and you can feel the energy, right?
Right.
Like, let's just take the energy out of it. We're just talking about bullet pointed facts, no more than 3. Because my brain can't hold more than 3, and neither can yours.
Right. No, that's awesome. We had Rachel post on LinkedIn, employee complaints to HR that supervisor never checks in or gives them feedback, and they don't know what steps to take to progress in their position. Yeah.
I love this one, Rachel. Thank you so much for this. So there's a couple things that I would do here with this one is ask them what they want, right? So it sounds like, hey, what do you want? Right. And we're literally going to go through the 6 steps. So that first one is that step 1 is prep with purpose. We don't have a lot of time to prep when folks show up in our office, but here's what we can do. Take a breath. That breath gives you a pause to center yourself. Just take a breath and get curious. We're live, so I have this plate behind me that says, I wonder what's on their plate that I don't yet know about. That curious question is for me, not the other person. It allows me to get curious, to take the breath, shift aside what's directly in front of me to be 100% present with that person.
Yeah.
Now they feel appreciated, acknowledged, and somebody's giving them the time. So I could make assumptions, but from the question, it doesn't sound like they feel appreciated or that they're given the time by their leader, right?
Right.
So then I'm going to set the tone, with that employee and say, thank you so much for bringing this up. I'm so curious. What is the outcome that you want from our conversation today? We don't want HR to be the complaint dumping ground that employees feel like they can come in and dump it and run, and you're just going to magically wave your magic wand and take care of it. There's a joint ownership here. We have to set it in that tone at the very beginning of the expectations for partnership. So it might be, David, thank you so much for bringing that in. What's the outcome that you want out of our conversation today?
Yeah.
And are you willing to play a role in this? Awesome. All right. So then we're going to go into the facts. So tell me a little bit about the conversations that you've been having with your manager. Well, they never check in with me. They don't do any of these things. They don't give me feedback. Awesome. Not great, right? Yet I'm curious, what do you think you could do to get what you want? Well, maybe I could send them an invite for 15 minutes, maybe twice a week. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you're willing to request what you want. Well, yeah. Have you done that yet? Well, maybe. I think so. Okay. So do you think we could come up with a way that's in writing that allows you to start to manage and lead up a little bit to get what you need for you to be successful? Because you're the
Right.
only one that can do that.
Right. And it might be an organizational thing, like if, because in our organization we have a small team, but our managers are doing monthly one-on-one meetings
Yeah.
with their team, and they have a day or a couple of days where they block out and they do those meetings. It's not like a performance review check-in. I mean, it could be like just a check-in on the performance, but just really a way for them to connect on a consistent basis every month. Sometimes it's even more frequent because they might have some projects going on. So I think across the board. So if Rachel, if you're in an organization that they're not doing those meetings, you might want to suggest that being a part of the next step of better communication between manager and employee, so that across the board, whether if this employee goes from one department or the next, the consistency of how employees and managers interact will be there. So if that one manager is the only one that's not doing the meetings with their team, then obviously it's going to be something that has to be addressed with that manager not doing the proper meetings with their team. But
yeah,
I think that would help.
Absolutely. So we're going to walk through that with that employee and get to a point where they walk away with one kind of key thing where we invited them to take ownership of this versus blame their manager for not.
Yeah.
And and then we're going to lock in that next step. So you willing to have a conversation, send a note and ask for a time that works for both of you with your manager, and then send me a quick note within the next week to let me know, right? As HR, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to send that employee an email. I'm going to create the 15-minute calendar invite. I'm going to send the email that says, this is what we talked about. This is what you agreed to. This is what I agreed to. Because guess what, HR, sometimes we are awful at our own documentation. Says the person here that was for quite a while until I came up with this.
Yeah.
Because I can do that very quickly. A lot of times when I'm talking to someone, I'm 100% present with them, and we get to the end and I say, hey, are you willing to just sit here and kind of think about what you want to do for 2 minutes while I write an email so we're both held accountable for this? Yeah, absolutely. Because guess what? While they're still in my office, they've captured my attention and mine theirs. The second they walk out, I might have 5 other people waiting, and I don't want to forget or lose track of that or stay until 7 o'clock tonight to finish all the things.
Right.
So I may have them sit in front of me for 2 or 3 minutes while I do that. So they feel heard, and that email's there before they even get back to their desk.
And I think depending on, the organization and their technology they have, there might be a way to document those conversations with some kind of app or AI tool, so that
For sure.
you're not having to sit there and write down everything you say, and you could have a summary of that conversation pretty quickly after it's finished, right? So
absolutely. Zoom AI is huge. A lot of times if it's a virtual meeting, I have Zoom AI running all the time, and I just copy and paste that, and then we're good to go.
Yep. I love that. So, all right, let's see what else is in here that's a little bit.
Before we shift this one, can we talk about the other side of this?
Yeah.
So we talked about what we're going to do with that employee. Now, what conversation could we potentially have with this leader? Now we get to do the same exact thing with this leader. Hey, I'm curious, how are things going with your team? Are you getting the results that you want from your team? No, man, let me tell you, Carl's always blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Carl was the one that just showed up in your office, right?
Right.
So now we're hearing 2 complaints about the same situation that we can start to walk through that. Oh, Rachel, I'm glad you love the 6 steps. And I have this for you afterwards if you want it. So,
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. That's awesome.
yeah. So again, it's not just for the employee. There is an obligation. Again, we have an obligation to create the container so we have fulfilling work for us to go back and tie that up. And that's where we sometimes get into the policy items. And
Right.
that person may need training, right? Like we offer a leadership development training. They may need it, like whatever that is.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's go to this one because this probably still happens. I don't hear about it as much. This was one that I made up. They're on social media bad mouthing the company, but it's on their personal time. So what would
First and
be
foremost, what does your policy say?
I was just going to say, what's the policy say about social media in your handbook? Got to go with that, right? You got to start
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we need to go with that. But here's where, like, if I have a copy of that, I may just say, hey, David, do you have a quick second? Yeah. I saw your post the other day that said X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me more about it? Why are we so afraid to call a black cat or whatever it is, right? Like,
Right.
It's a fact. I have a screenshot of it.
Yep.
I didn't start with, I can't believe you badmouthed the company. I just said, I saw your post. I'm curious. Can you tell me more about it?
I'm curious. Yep.
I bet I'm going to get an earful. Can't wait.
Open up a can of worms there with it sometimes. But I mean, yeah, it's I think you address it that way and it comes the outcome of that is maybe 2 different approaches or 2 different outcomes. They're going to be more upset because they know what they're saying on social media on their personal time is being monitored, or they're going to say, yeah, that probably wasn't the best thing to put. I'll delete it. Or, they'll realize that they probably overreacted behind their cell phone and they, said something that was probably not thoroughly thought out before they posted it. And you're there to help them understand that those kinds of things, while it's there for them to voice their opinion, and it's going to be a lot of good for some people to use in that sense, but it could really change the way perception about somebody is moving forward if they're going to be out there bad mouthing the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I say, tell me about it, I'm looking to get at what requests do they actually have? Because under there's some sort of request that they are not putting out there in a healthy way that is causing them some pretty serious damage.
Right.
But it's also creating some negative impact on the organization.
Right.
So when we can get curious about what's the request they actually have and
Right.
dig into that with them. So, like, what was the purpose you wanted there? Like, what was the outcome you wanted? These questions sound familiar. They're repeated over and over. What was the outcome you wanted? Well, I just want to feel like I'm appreciated at work. Amazing. Did that post have you feel appreciated at work? Well, everyone said that I'm working for a bad company. Okay. So tell me about the company you want to work for. Tell me about how you actually would like to be appreciated at work. Notice I didn't have them tell me more of the negative. I shifted it into what they actually wanted.
Yep.
And
now, is this the manager asking these questions, or is this HR? Like, who's asking this bad mouthing?
It can be either one, as long as the person has been trained, so to say, in how to have
There
the
you go.
conversation.
Yep.
Again, you have to be trained in how to do this, or you can create a train wreck for your organization. Train to train wreck. I don't know. It worked.
Yep.
And these are, again, like, in our leadership program, this is what we work on over and over is how do we have these conversations? How do we bring in this coaching mentality? This is not a management, you did wrong, go sit in your spot and don't do it again. That doesn't create long-standing behavioral change.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but when I've been treated that way in the past, I don't feel appreciated or heard or that what I'm bringing forward adds value.
Right.
I'm creating a container to hear this person out, understand what's underneath it, and then I'm requesting and a lot of times demanding a behavioral change. Otherwise, there's other options here,
Right.
but we're not going to start with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else with this one that you think, looking at your various steps, that you've brought up a few times? I mean, this one could be a little bit more black and white, especially if there's a policy that they can refer back to and try to remind them that this is really important policy that they should be aware of, and kind of help them understand where they're coming from.
And one of the things that I would probably dig into on this one specifically is, so I'll just use you because you're in front of me. So David, I'm so curious. What had you feel like you couldn't bring this concern forward inside of the organization that you had to go to social media?
Right.
So when we can start to ask that question of them, notice it was out of curiosity, not you should have come to us first. Right. I'm curious, what have we done or said that has created this feeling that you couldn't come to us first?
Right.
And now he's probably, or she is probably going to tell us 10 things that have happened within the department. Okay. Right. Thank you for bringing that forward, because it looks like we may have some work to do internally to build trust.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to work with us on some of that trust building? You notice what I'm doing? I'm enrolling them in the solution.
Yep.
Would you be willing to work with us on that? I understand you're going to have to trust me a little bit with this, but what's the outcome you want? Well, I want X, Y, and Z. Amazing. Guess what? As HR here, I also have something that I want and quite honestly need. This is what I need. And I think that there's a way that we can get to it. And then I may bring in the policy and say, as a reminder, I hate bringing up policy, but it is something that's important as guardrails here for us all. Right. I do want to remind you of the policy, but I don't want that to negate the fact that you didn't feel you had trust within the organization, as long as that's what they said, right? Don't throw things in that haven't been said. So can we agree on we're going to work on X, Y, and Z, and this is how, and we both understand that there's maybe a different way to do this to get to the outcome we want.
Right.
And then guess what we do? Send that fun little email or the AI transcript or whatever it is.
Yep.
And don't forget to go back and communicate with this individual. If they never hear from you again, you become a part of the lack of trust, because now they're counting on you for some sort of a circle back. And again, a lot of times I will say, it is your responsibility, David, to circle back with me a week from now to own this. And here's what I'm going to do. And here's some conversations I'm going to have. And when you circle back with me a week from now, or let's set up another 15-minute conversation where we can update each other.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of times when I get complaints, when I sit and talk to an employee about, and this is in other jobs, it's always been the case that, I want to hear their complaint, but no matter what it is, I kind of ask them like, all right, what kind of solution do you have, or what have you thought of? And when I ask them for a solution and they have no solution, which a lot of times they don't, they're coming to me for a solution, but sometimes I may not know the right solution to the problem. So if they have a true complaint about something in their job, whether it's about their manager, about somebody else, whatever, like it's like, what do you think the outcome should be? And how can I help you with that solution that you think is going to better the situation? And, sometimes they have solutions, sometimes they have ideas, but a lot of times they don't. Like, they haven't thought through it. So I try to tell people like, hey, you want to bring you bring a problem to me, you bring a complaint, and that's great. Like I want to help you through that, but also think about what would you do to change the situation.
Mhm.
I just don't want to work with them anymore. I don't want to work for that manager. And sometimes people leave companies because of the way they're managed. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the world we live in right now, is that people don't, they love the company sometimes, they just don't like the manager.
Right.
So
So this is where, what can you control, right?
right. Right.
What can you control? Well, can you control your manager? No. Can you control your thought about your manager? Yeah. So what are your thoughts about your manager right now? And you're going to hear all the things, right?
Yeah.
And then it's going, okay, so can I ask you a question? Well, sure. So I just want to kind of show another perspective here. And I'm not defending your manager at all, but I just want to maybe share some things that are on their plate that you may not be aware of. And of course, make sure you have the ability to say that. But
Right.
you know what? This manager is actually responsible for 2 departments right now when they're assigned one because of some staffing things. They've got 3
Yep.
staff that are out right now. Is happening. So I think at times, sometimes it's having grace with ourselves, but sometimes it's having grace with others. Is there a different thought that we could potentially have about our manager that changes the results that we're getting
Right.
from what we're doing? Sometimes we set our managers up to fail.
Mhm.
Sometimes our kids set us up to fail. I had that conversation with my son this weekend, but really shifting that to say, how could you actually set your manager up to meet your expectations?
Right.
Wait, what? Yeah, you have the ability to do that. Would you like to explore that and come up with some ways to do it? Well, sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's fun.
So, do you want to hear how I felt like I was set up to fail this weekend?
Yes.
We're going
'Cause
to
I
shift it out of work for a hot minute here. Because
yeah,
I think
'cause
everyone could probably, and I don't know how many of you have teenagers or will have teenagers, and they are the best, most amazing humans in the world. And what's so amazing about them is that they're learning to be adults. And when they're learning to be adults, it is our responsibility to create the container for them to be great adults.
Yep.
So it was, Mom, there's nothing in our refrigerator to eat and I'm hungry. And I go, well, there's 4 pounds of hamburger in there that's thawed, and there's 2 pounds of round steak, and there's spaghetti noodles that have been cooked, and we're running to Costco tomorrow morning. So what would you like? Well, I don't want to make anything. I go, so it's not really that there's not food. It's that there's not food that's made for you that you want to eat. Well, yeah. I said, okay. So what do you want to eat? Well, I don't know. And I said, you realize you're setting me up to fail because you don't want to cook, yet you won't tell me what you want to eat.
Right.
So I can't really win here. So then we get to Costco. This was Saturday. We get to Costco Sunday and we're walking through and I'm like, well, what do you want to eat this week? Do you want like the chicken Alfredo, or do you want the rotisserie chicken, or are we making anyone hungry?
Yes.
Do you want the chicken pot pie? He's like, I don't want any of it. I looked at him. I said, okay, again, you are setting me up to fail.
Yep.
Because you're holding me responsible for your belly being full. I'm willing to support you in that, but I'm not willing to own it when you won't tell me what you want. So what do you want? Well, I don't know. Okay. Well, then I'm going to leave the ingredients in the refrigerator and I will let you create them for yourself. Well, I don't want that. Well, what do you want? Right? So this is probably an example similar to employees not knowing what they want. And at some point, we have to leave them in the uncomfortable until they can actually make a request.
Right.
So I left it as, when you're ready to tell me what you want to eat, I'm happy to potentially work with you on making it. But here's my rule. I love to cook. I cook 1 day a week, and that's Sundays. If I don't cook on Sundays, you fend for yourself, which might mean ramen noodles this week.
I always get I'm bored as well. Outside of the eating, because my kids all have different eating habits. So it's like, well, if you're not going to eat what I'm making, then you can find something to make, peanut butter and jelly, whatever. But yeah, the especially over the summer, it's like I'm bored. I'm like, when I was younger, I didn't sit and complain to my mom when I was bored. I would just go find something to do.
Yep.
It's like your boredom is not my responsibility sometimes.
Right.
It's like just yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's crazy. But your son did win a scholarship, which that's
He
awesome.
did. He
That's
did.
awesome.
Yep. So he's a senior this year we finally decided on a school last week. So he finally
Awesome.
committed
Very cool.
to UW Madison. We
Very
were
cool.
between Madison and Marquette and decided on Madison.
Awesome.
And this is actually a great story about this. So he won a community involvement scholarship for a beauty pageant, Miss Beloit,
Okay.
which is the city that we live in. And before we went, I said, you may get called up on stage. You don't know if you won this yet or not, but what do you think about what you're wearing? He's like, what I'm wearing is fine. And I go, well, we are going to a beauty pageant, which means everybody's going to be in full formal, at least the contestants. And,
Right.
people are probably going to be dressed up a little bit.
Yeah.
So how do you want to present yourself? Well, Mom, I don't even know if I'm going to get it. I said, yeah, but do you want to dress for the part or not? Well, I don't know. I guess I don't really care. So he's wearing jeans and a sweatshirt and tennis shoes. I mean, what teenagers do.
Right.
And we're sitting there and they're like, so we are now going to announce the community involvement. And there was two. There was a runner-up and then the winner of it. And they both got some money and both went up on stage. And he looks at me and goes, oh, Mom, now what? And I go, you're here the way you are.
Yep.
Present yourself the best you can. He's like, okay. So he goes up on stage at this beauty pageant wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. And I am so proud of him because of how he owned it. But afterwards, we did have a conversation about how do we want to prepare for these things in the future? And how do you want to represent that?
Yeah. Well, congrats to your son. It sounds like he's got a exciting future and going to school. Hopefully it's not too far away, so he's close to you still, right? So
yeah, we're about 45 minutes. And again, I am so proud of him. Even jeans and sweatshirt, who cares?
Yeah.
But it's not so much at times about the situation itself. It's about what we can learn from it. And I do want to leave your listeners with that. Instead of banging on, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. Guess what? We can't change the behavior in the past. What we can do is what did we learn from it for what we want in the future so that we leave them with the confidence and the self-esteem to want to make a different decision versus banging them on the head for making a decision that we don't necessarily like. That's never going to build their confidence and enroll them in what we may want or need for them to do. And I think that that's such an important piece.
Super important. I'm glad you brought that up. Well, I'm going to put on the screen the QR code to go out and book some time with Traci. So if you are interested, definitely scan that QR code. But, Traci, where else can people find you, on the website? And do you want them to email you? What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Traci Austin. We do have a podcast called the People Strategy Podcast. If you like what you heard today, love for you to follow that as well. When you book that, I will also send you that Tough Talk audit, which is the 6 steps and some, very specific examples. Sometimes it's easier in writing than it is hearing it. So I'm happy to send that to you. Yeah. So go ahead and book some time with me. And even if you don't want to meet with me, you just want the audit, book the time. I'll email it, then you can cancel it. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're doing a lot of leadership development, training.
Yeah.
What else has been the big requests lately from customers?
Yeah, it really has been the training. It's been the leadership development training. And we do it, I would say, a little bit differently, where everything we do comes through a coaching model. I'm certified coach through International Coaching Federation. So with that being said, it's the training with a coaching call each week, because unless you actually practice this and embody it to get a transformation yourself, the training isn't going to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, congrats on the podcast and everything that you've been working on lately. You're at episode, 200 and
6, I think. We've got, we took a pause for a minute as we transitioned a little bit, and we have a new one coming out this week. So we'll have new ones going forward.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Tracy, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I know we didn't get to all the complaints, but I think people really understand what you're trying to get across with your process and approach with complaints, and really what the next time people can do differently when they do have those kind of complaints. So I definitely learned a lot. I'm going to definitely use what I learned from you today, and in my future complaint situations, I am sure of that. So wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll keep in touch, and hopefully we'll see each other at some kind of event coming up or conference. But appreciate your time, Tracy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David.
All right, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.